In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at a game from the Decision Games mini-series. It is called Khyber Rifles, Britannia in Afghanistan. And this is part of the Hand of Destiny series. It's actually a fairly good series. It is a mini game, so I mean, it's quick playing, and it's not going to have a lot of depth to it, but it's surprisingly good for the type of game it is. Now, this is covering the 1841 and 1842 British campaign in Afghanistan, and this was also covered in an S&T number 179 called First Afghan War. And I did an earlier video about that in the Sun Never Sets series, which has a little bit more depth to it than this one. This is point to point, and it uses the cards to drive the action. And it's not really a card-driven game, but the cards do come out and have events, and it kind of dictates what you can and can't do on that turn. So it adds some semi-randomness to the game. It does help with the replayability. And in this game, the victory points are basically awarded for either destroying enemy regular troops or capturing and holding objectives that are on the map. So it's very simple. Each turn in the game represents 1 month of time, except in winter months, a turn actually covers 2 months, simulating the slowdown in activity. So the Afghani player is the first player in the game, and the setup begins with the British player moving General Elphinstone's army of Kabul toward India. And he has in his force a contingent of civilians traveling with him, so these are going to have the effect of slowing down his march. Now, on the other side, the Afghan forces are going to probably be using guerrilla tactics. The game rewards that for them, and they're probably going to be opportunists and wait for the right opportunities to strike. And one of the advantages that the Afghan player has in this game is he can use trails, which are represented by the dotted lines on the map. He'll be able to use trails to traverse the terrain where the British regulars will not be able to do that. They can only use roads and rivers where they have craft. So that's a brief introduction into this game. Let's go down to the map and see how it plays out. So turn 1 of this game is November and December of 1841. It's a winter turn, and the Afghan player goes first and selects a card randomly from the deck. And it is Tribes Go Home. So that's not a good card. Most of the Afghani units here are irregulars, and they're going to have to pass a die roll to remain on the map. If they don't, they're going to lose their motivation for fighting. Maybe they'll go off into some looting or go back to their normal life at home. So this time, after I rolled all the dice, half of the Afghan forces go home. And what is worse, there's no recruiting, no movement, and anything like that this turn, so no combat. Then we go to the British player turn. He selects a campaign card. And this time it is King of Kabul. So that's an event. It's going to allow the British to select one Afghan formation and force it to retreat. So the Ghazi warriors in the Gizai, which is Kalat-i-Gizai, which is a fort, are going to be moved back into the clear area behind Ghazni. And these forts are a victory point area for the British, so it's a good move, I think, to force the enemy out of the position. But only the Shah Shuja formation is able to move with this card, and it doesn't seem advisable to move. And because it's a winter turn, the British are going to have some supply problems, as units that are not in a fortress or on a British base are going to be out of supply. And these units have their move ability reduced, as well as a weakened combat strength. The Kabul force is in a dangerous predicament here. in the cantonment, and the Khyber rifle unit in Khyber Pass is also out of supply. So the only saving factor for the British this time is that the tribe's go home event ended up reducing the size and potency of the enemy force. Now we go to turn 2, which is January and February of 1862. And the Afghan player goes first and randomly selects a card, and it is the ambush card. So this is going to allow 2 Afghan units to be recruited, which is done randomly, and it's also hidden from the British player. So what ends up happening is that Ghazi cavalry and infantry are both raised, and I deployed them with the Mohammed Akbar Khan unit in the open area that he is occupying. So this card allows 5 units to move, and the Afghans decide to advance against the British fort in Ghazni. And this is defended by a lone infantry brigade of Shah Shuja's formation. The British forces are outnumbered here, obviously. However, the British are going to receive a +1 modifier to their tactical rating because they're defending in a fort. But the Afghani force has an elite unit, which is going to give them a +1 die roll modifier to their tactical rating. So I'm going to spread the units out into a battle board. That's how battles are fought in this game. And this time the Afghans win the tactical superiority die roll, and they have the opportunity to fire first. So the Afghans end up getting a kill and a panic result, so the British unit is destroyed before it can even react or fire. So the fort at Ghazni falls to Akbar Khan's warriors. Now remember, British player will receive victory points for occupying forts at the end of the game. So this is a really good move for the Afghan player to potentially reduce the British victory point level. Now we go to the British player turn, and he selects a weak card, Pollock on the March. This is referring to General Pollock or Colonel Pollock. And it's a weak card because the relief force is not in play yet. The British player, though, can activate one other force, and so he selects Elphinstone's Kabul force because this formation is currently out of supply, and it will continue to be out of supply if it's left in its present location. So a large contingency of the Kabul force moves back to Kabul, while the Khyber rifles are pulled out of the Khyber Pass back into the British base at Peshawar. And there's no attacks this time, and the out of supply units are now able to obtain supplies. Now we go on to the third turn. It's March of 1842, so now we're out of the winter, so each turn's actually only a month of activity instead of 2. So the Afghans select a card. It is the Tribal Raiding Campaign card. So that is going to allow another recruited unit to be deployed within 3 spaces of Kandahar. So this time the Afridi cavalry is placed in the fort at Kalat Ghizi. Again, 5 Afghan units are allowed to move per the card text. So 1 warrior unit moves to Kalat Ghizi, and 1 leader, Akbar Khan, moves with some of his forces to Pewar Kotal Pass. And since his units are irregular, he's able to use the trail, which is impassable to regulars. So this pass is going to give the Afghans a +1 die roll modifier on the tactical roll if they are able to enter combat there. So this is a really good place for Afghan warriors to hide out. Then the British player draws a card. It's the Political Officers card. So this allows him to recruit up to 2 irregular units. The only one available right now is a regular, so not really able to use this card to full effect. The card also allows the activation of one command. So the British player decides to use the Kabul formation. So the Broadfoot Pioneers, which are basically Afghan mercenaries under British command, and also the Khyber Rifles move into Khyber Pass to secure it. So the Khyber Pass is worth a victory point to the British player at the game's end. So this is a good place to be. Then the Wild Brigade moves from Peshawar to the town of Kohat. Finally, the other forces in Kabul march south into contact with the Afghans in the open. And this is going to result in a battle. So the British player generally doesn't want a battle like this because the Afghans collect victory points by eliminating British regulars. Sometimes, though, the terrain needs to be cleared. So in this case, it's a calculated risk. In the battle, the Afghan forces end up gaining tactical superiority. So that means they get to fire first. And during the first round, one British unit is eliminated and one Afghan unit panics. There ended up being a second round, and the British player was able to eliminate the other Afghan unit. So the Ghizai cavalry unit flees to Shatar Gardam Pass. Next, we go to turn 4. It is April of 1842, and the Afghan player selects a card, and it is the Central Asian Allies card. 2 Afghan units are deployed because of this card, and 2 units are placed in the town of Sharakar, which is just north of Kabul. Again, allowed to move a total of 5 units. So 2 warrior units move into Shatar Gardam Pass. Then Akbar Khan and his cavalry move to Khyber Pass, where they're going to engage with Captain Bradfoot's Pioneers and the Khyber Rifles. Akbar Khan's warband has a tactical modifier because he's attacking in a pass, and he has another modifier for having an elite unit in the combat, so he's going to get a +2 die roll modifier for the initiative. And the British player, though, has an elite unit in the battle, which is the Broadfoot Pioneers, so that he gets a +1 die roll modifier. And this time the British roll well, and they win the tactical superiority. So one of the Afghan cavalry units ends up panicked, but unfortunately both British units are wiped out during the first round of fighting. And Akbar Khan occupies Khyber Pass. Then the British player selects a card. It is Not on the March. So none of the recruitable units are available, so there's going to be no replacements for the British player this turn. But General Nott's units do march north from Kandahar to the fort at Kalat, and there are 2 warrior units there. So there's going to be a combat. The British force has 1 elite unit, so that helps get tactical superiority. And this time the Afghan units panic, and 1 is overwhelmed in the rout. So General Nott's forces end up reclaiming the fort at Kalat. And the Kabul forces are also activated from this card, and General Elphinstone orders them to march to Jagdalak Pass. Now, this formation has civilians included. There's no contact with the enemy, and they do end up stopping in a dangerous location in this pass because the Afghans will have a +1 modifier if there is any action there. So we only hope that the British formation will stay out of contact and be safe. That brings a conclusion to turn 4. Please stay tuned if you'd like to see more of the replay of this game from the miniseries Khyber Rifles.